Welcome to the Centurion 360 podcast with PR marketing and crisis management expert Michael Bilello.
And welcome to the Centurion 360 podcast. I am still your host, Michael Bilello. You can check us out on Twitter at Centurion360. My personal Twitter handle is BilelloPR. You can also send us an email, info@centurion-strategies.com. One of the things I'll bring up on occasion is veteran unemployment, specifically veterans transitioning or looking to transition over to the private sector. That's not an easy thing for veterans to do right now. I've got plenty of friends who are having a hard time transferring over from active military service to a full-time job. So either we'll have guests on and I'll ask some questions specifically about that because they have some insight. Either they themselves have made the transition over to a large corporation. Some have ventured out on their own. But my guest today has not only ventured out on his own and done it successfully, but done it in a very unique manner, a very bold manner. Former Marine infantryman Paul Szoldra, founder of a website called Duffel Blog. For those of you who perhaps are from the veteran community, military community, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When I met Paul, he was working on a website that was going to help veterans secure funding, GI Bill assistance, other assistance, I believe, to go back to school to address this exact issue. And this was a few years ago. But he was having a challenge in the business planning phase. And this is where we were having a discussion along with Dr. Rebecca White, who's director of the Entrepreneurship Center at the University of Tampa. We've had her on a podcast. And what Paul was looking to do was to drive traffic to this site, again, delivering veteran assistance. And the way in which he came up to do that, the plan to do that was to have people hit this website, which was going to be a military satire site. And then from there would be banners or links or sidebar ads that would get you to go to that website. So he knew that if he can engage the military community, the veteran community, with these onion-like military satirical pieces, he can then throw the college assistance website in front and drive traffic that way. And what's funny is we talk about when you're planning a business or when you're looking to launch a company, you're not sure what's going to take. You're not sure what's going to work, what's not going to work. A lot of it really is an experiment. It's a work in progress. You have to continuously pivot and make changes and adjustments. And so what we'll ask him today is sort of, where was that pivot point? When did you decide to go full bore with the Duffel Blog vice the original business plan? On top of that, I just wanted to reconnect with him. The time here is 6:30. I put in a pretty long day. With Paul, he's in Los Angeles, so he's on Pacific time. That does not mean that I need to amend my behaviors. So on most podcasts taking place at 6 or 6:30, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock is my cutoff point. We may be enjoying some adult beverages. Today's choice is Stella Artois. Stella, if you're listening and you'd like to sponsor, we've got like 35 listeners in Kansas, and I'm sure they would be loyal to your brand. We'll take product trade, and I'll just continue to plug you until you cooperate. So anyway, we're waiting for Paul to dial in, and I think this is him now. So I hope you enjoy it. Looking forward to having sort of a virtual happy hour, if you will, with Paul Szoldra. Paul Szoldra, thank you very much for joining the Centurion 360 podcast. Great to connect with you, man. How you been?
Hey, it's good, man. Mike, it's really great to talk to you again, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, for sure. So during the before we connected with you, I was kind of giving people the preview of how we met and what you've been doing since we've met. But I got to the point where we're talking about this site you're developing, and the site was going to be a resource for veterans looking to go back to college and make sure that they were properly using their GI Bill, but also tap into other resources. And the issue came up in the business plan, or the challenge I'm assuming you had to address, was how do I drive traffic to that site? Tell us about that process, what you discovered, and when you began to pivot more toward what would become the Duffel Blog.
Yeah, I it's funny that when I talk about Duffel Blog and like the founding story of Duffel Blog, people expect this sort of aha moment of, the entrepreneur thinking of this great idea, and then you work on it really hard, and then it just kind of, launches, it takes off. I kind of I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I basically came upon Duffel Blog sort of by accident. So, like you said, I started this website. It's called collegeveteran.com, with the idea being that I had a kind of a hard experience of going from being in the Marine Corps. I was there for 8 years, and then you get out and you have to do this whole new experience of going to college, and all these thoughts going in my head. How do I choose a school? Why would I choose that school? How do I apply for my GI Bill? There's resources that were just kind of slim on those fronts, and so I figured, hey, I could start a site that'll help you out. And then that morphed into, I can make like a Yelp review site for military veterans and colleges, and that was sort of an idea of it. And then while I was working on this, I found content marketing, as something that was, helping businesses drive traffic to their websites. And one of those things was to have blogs. So I started one blog, which is just like a company blog, I believe, about, what college veteran would be doing and that kind of thing. Another blog was, education, tips and tricks for vets. That was one blog, which I don't even remember the name for. And then the other one was Duffel Blog, which basically I looked at The Onion and I thought, well, The Onion's funny and they're really great. I love The Onion, still do. But when they do military stories, sometimes they're kind of a bit off. Maybe they get a rank wrong, or they call a Marine a soldier or something like that. It's kind of like The Onion needs a military technical advisor. And so I started Duffel Blog as like a satire website for the military. Well, not even a website. It was just a sub thing of college veterans. So it's collegeveteran.com/Duffelblog, if I remember correctly. And what happened was I started writing. I wrote maybe an article, one a week for a bit, and then I think I did maybe two a week, and it was just me. And they started to kind of take off a little bit. Like I believe one was posted to Reddit in the military subreddit, and so that got some readers. And then some people were posting it on Facebook and stuff like that. And so I realized what happened was people were associating the entire website, College Veteran, as this fake news website for the military. And then I knew, okay, I have to break this off. So I broke them off maybe a month or two after I had used that or started the blog. And I registered duffelblog.com, and I was still doing collegeveteran.com, still in college, as you know. And it was maybe a few months later, as I was kind of basically graduating and moving on and kind of looking for jobs and stuff like that. College Veteran wasn't really doing well, and Duffel Blog wasn't really doing well as far as making money, but it was certainly doing well in getting people to read it. And it looked like that was the site that was going to be working. And I told myself, hey, College Veteran, I'll get back to that. I'll do it someday. I haven't, been able to. I just am so busy with, with life and Duffel Blog and, my other job and everything. So, but it's funny, the College Veteran thing, while I was doing that, just a side note, I got interviewed by U.S. News and World Report on college tips or something like that, and they linked College Veteran. That was kind of why I wanted to do it, and it was just tips for veterans to go to college. I still get contacted. I'm like the guy who knows how to do college transition for military vets. I still get emails from that article. If you Google, college for veterans, you'll probably find this article, which is kind of funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
What was the first article? Do you remember writing the first article?
Yeah, the first article was I kept it close to home. I chose MacDill Air Force Base because I was going to University of Tampa, so MacDill's right there, CENTCOM. And I actually chose the actual Air Force commander, used him by name. Was a little worried at the time because I didn't know how satire worked and parody and all that kind of stuff. But the first article ever was Air Force, or it was Colonel angered by unofficial Air Force nickname bans chairs, or upset about Chair Force nickname bans chairs.
Ban chairs, yep.
And so it was all about the commander at the CENTCOM telling all his airmen that they had to use standing desks to work, and they couldn't sit down in chairs anymore.
So Was this?
Yeah, and actually looking back on that one article, I mean, it's pretty terrible. Like we're so much way better now, and the quality of the articles over the past 3 years have gotten so much better that I'm almost embarrassed to even talk about these old articles.
Yeah, but I remember the first article, and you have to think about it in its context and its time. I mean, you cross the line, just even to step over that line. I mean, now you're a habitual line stepper, but you cross the line for the first time, and so that was pretty impressive. But to go from that and then to write an article about Guantanamo detainees receiving GI Bill benefits, and U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell actually requiring an inquiry, filing a formal inquiry into that entire situation. Tell us about that. That's
so what happened was that article came out. It did okay. So we had this article where basically we were satirizing the VA process and how the VA is really slow and it's just really painful usually to work with the VA. And so the idea was to give them GI Bill benefits as a way of torturing Guantanamo Bay prisoners. They have to deal with the VA bureaucracy and it's just going to be hell for them. So that was the whole premise behind the article. It's pretty funny. And we put it up and it did okay. What happened was maybe a few months after we published it, there was an article in Wired in Danger Room. Not Noah Shockman, but Spencer Ackerman got this Pentagon or this letter from Mitch McConnell's office sent to the Pentagon that basically said, "Hey, a constituent asked me about this article. Here's the link, which was to Duffel Blog. I want to know if this is true. Why is this happening, etc." And basically, they had to give this response. Basically saying like, "Hey, this is not a real website." In fairness, it wasn't Mitch McConnell who wrote the letter. It was probably some lowly intern who wrote this letter.
Let me stop you right there. Did
Mitch
you
McConnell
find out who someone got in trouble for that? Did we ever find out who that was? Some staffer, maybe even the chief of staff, definitely got into that.
I'm sure someone got in trouble for it.
Right.
But to me, it's like it was just funny as hell,
right.
And it got a lot of play on the news. Beyond Danger Room, it went all over the place, especially on the left leaning.
If you look
blogs,
at your,
love to pile on.
If Duffel Blog had battle streamers, that would certainly be a battle streamer. No.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's funny that you bring that one up because I don't know if you're familiar with the app Time Hop.
I'm not.
So there's this app you can get. It's like you get on your phone. It's called Time Hop, and basically you connect your various social media accounts like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. And every day it'll come up with like what was happening a year ago or what was happening 2 years ago. It's kind of like it'll show you a picture from 2 years ago. You're like, oh yeah, I was there. So anyway, today I'm looking at my Time Hop and it comes up this letter, a statement from Representative Jim Moran, Democrat from Virginia, I believe.
Right.
We referenced him in an article because I think he said, I don't know, he said something stupid once, so his name was on my mind. Yeah, once or twice. Well, he was talking about the congressmen are not paid enough. They get $174,000 a year. I'm not sure if people realize that, but he was saying that how they're underpaid and they don't make enough money for the work they do or something like that, which was totally ridiculous. So we mentioned him in an article we wrote, and then he put out a statement condemning Duffel Blog as being against the troops and all this other stuff. You can look it up. So I got this article, I got the thing popping up on me, but what was funny is like that was another congressman who mentions Duffel Blog, and I actually released a statement myself to The Hill, who asked me for comment. And there was more to it, but basically I said, oh man, it must have been horrible for all his unpaid interns to answer phone calls and emails. and I said I thank the congressmen and other members of Congress for all the work that they're not doing.
Hilarious.
So yeah, I've had some fun with it. I mean,
have you been audited? Have your taxes been audited since anything? Yeah. Black Lincolns in front of your house.
Let's not give them any
exploding
ideas.
Frappuccinos. Nothing under the comment.
No, it's funny. I thought for the longest time that I had a worry, not necessarily from Congress, but from like just military officials. I thought, maybe they'd find some kind of weird anti-satire law or something, and they would shut my website down. And so, as time has gone on, I've realized like, hey, I have, well, first off, I've realized like it's okay. Satire is a protected form of free speech, and really just anything really goes. I can do whatever I want. Now I have my own kind of internal regulations, but there's no law against what I'm doing. And but I thought there would be some kind of like the general would call and be like, you got to shut your blog down, and I'd be like, yes sir, I'm sorry, please don't hurt me. So again, it's like very much kind of flying by the seat of my pants a little bit.
You had to
figuring this out as I go along.
Wake up at night, nightmares of being in that orange jumpsuit with a weed whacker. The guys you see when you're driving through the gate at Camp Pendleton, and they're sort of doing the maintenance. That's exactly what I would be afraid of doing. That's possibly the worst punishment. Yeah, but it's got to be liberating. I mean, when you're really in, and you're under things like UCMJ, and you're under things that are probably worse than UCMJ, like even platoon and company politics. You don't get to speak out. So did you have some of these thoughts? Were you that guy in the platoon, like just kind of entertaining everybody about the day-to-day grind?
Surprisingly, I've always had sort of this sense of humor that I have now, and that shines through in my writing. But actually, you'd probably be surprised to know that I was not like the platoon joker. In fact, I was pretty much very, very a serious Marine. Like I tried to be, maintain my bearing and try to be that, straight shooting dude, and there were like other people that were the joker types. That was just kind of me. But like with my guys in my squad or something, yeah, I would definitely be joking and everything like that. But I was never the guy that was like, the gunny pulls aside and be like, "What the fuck, soldier?" Like that was never me. But I definitely had, I definitely saw plenty. I was in for 8 years, so you just see kind of just dumb stuff occurring, and it just adds up. And what I've had is just, I got out and I started this blog, and I basically, when I started, it was only me. I just kind of rattled off the ideas and jokes or just weird things that I saw, and hit those with articles, and then. And I even thought that I would run out of material. I thought there was there's no way 3 years ago I thought that I'd be here in 3 years still writing stuff. I figured, okay, we're just going to run out of jokes. There's only so many times you can make fun of reflective belts. But I actually don't want to do any PT belt jokes anymore. Like we're doing serious articles, and just stuff happens in the news every day that it's like we're not really running out of material, and it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, the what you would consider the shallow stuff, which I think is still entertaining, gets you more resources, gets you more contacts. And then in the game of journalism, as you know, is you start to get, as you get more contacts, you get more information. So you're probably getting a lot more submissions. You have a lot more resources. You can make a phone call and make an article that much more interesting. Because I think the best articles, and you guys continue to evolve and put great stuff out there, is sort of a mix between satire, but then also, talking about history and traditions. It's very cool to see it develop like that.
Well, I'm greatly, the blog has benefited just immensely by the fact that I have so many contributors. So it would not be nearly as good as it is now with quality and everything else without, all the contributing writers that are actually writing more. So it used to be just me. Maybe 3 months down the line, I got an email from some guy who said, "Hey, I really like this. Like, can I write for you?" And I said, "Hey, sure. Okay." And there was no kind of vetting. I just was like, "Great. Army guy, cool."
Right.
And I just started adding people who wanted to write. Now there's a whole submission process, and I kind of vet people to make sure that they are good writers and they have good ideas. But over time, I've brought on all these contributors, and they bring, a lot of them write under pseudonyms, and they're still active duty. There's some vets, but there's all services are represented. And then, we have like a actual writing process that has been worked out. So, a lot of the ideas that we would normally been, just me thinking an idea and then I write it up with no feedback. Now it's like I think of an idea and then I'll pitch it to everybody else, and then they'll say, "Hey, that sucks, but try this," and we'll tweak it, and then I'll write it up first draft, and then we'll post it, and I'll get feedback, and then typically an article will have at least 4 or 5 different hands on it and different ideas, from all the different services and the different experiences officer enlisted. So by the time it actually goes out and you're reading it, it's just way, way better than when it started.
Yeah. So you made the transition. You have been a successful entrepreneur thus far, and I think you'll continue. I think you're just getting started. I think you're going to go a very long way. Nothing you've heard for the first time, but you're a veteran who's employing veterans. So you're solving the exact thing that they're telling us is a problem, and they're trying to solve in companies like Blackstone are throwing tons of money at. I don't know what they're doing, but I hear more success stories of veterans employing veterans than I do anything about any government programs or any capital management or Wall Street type firms trying to throw money at this to solve it. It's just not happening. How do you feel about how veterans are being presented? To me, it seems like the marketing message is wrong. It seems like an adopt a wounded puppy. He bring him home to your kids. He might bite one of your kids, but he needs a home. He's lonely. Give him some shelter. That's, I feel like, the marketing message. They're not highlighting skills. They're not highlighting the mental mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset of going into the unknown and being comfortable with the unknown and taking chances and leading by example. Not to get too crazy and patriotic about it, but that's what makes us unique. They're marketing the wrong thing. I personally don't appreciate it as a veteran. Am I taking it too personally, or am I wrong?
Well, actually, I don't really disagree with that. In fact, I'd say, well, I think as far as when you see these companies that have these initiatives to, hire heroes, or, Walmart wants to hire 10,000 vets or whatever it was, the way they portray it is if, it's kind of this, they don't even know why they're going after veterans. It's just kind of, we're just doing what we think is right as a company, which, that's a good thing to do, of course. But I think, like you said, many veterans just thrive and are good at just dealing with stress, and they have leadership qualities that are great, and they also can learn very quickly. But I'll give you an example. So, actually, let me back up. So, one thing I want to say is that I also don't think that these veteran hiring initiatives necessarily are all that great, because it's sort of this idea of, please help me, I'm a veteran, I need your help, corporate world. And, there are plenty of vets, or there's plenty of other people who are struggling in this world who, could use a handout, but they're just working hard to get there. And I've worked with so many people that are just hard working people, just working their ass off to get where they need to be, not necessarily veterans. And it's just like, that's what you need to do to excel in this world. You have to just work your ass off, and nobody is going to say like, "Hey, you're a veteran, let me hire you." Maybe that'll get you in the door, possibly, but you have to get in the door and then really, really work hard and show like, "Hey, I'm awesome." So, an example of that is like my first job out of college, I was an intern at Business Insider in New York City. And, being in New York City, I quickly realized I'd never lived there or worked there, but I quickly realized like everybody here is working insane hours, and they're just all like just crazy A players. So I was working at BI. There was another Marine there that was there, and an Army guy. Like I was working in the military section for reporting, but we were the only military guys there. All the other civilians around me, civilian reporters, they're working their asses off. They're working 12, 13-hour days, and their work ethic is just as much, if not more, as the next military veteran. So It's not like they're not, good enough. It's just like that's the level of playing field we're on. So you can't. I guess like military vets can't always rely on the fact like you can't come back from, I served in Afghanistan, so people like should hook me up. I mean, I served in Afghanistan, and I mean, I served in the Marine Corps, but that doesn't mean that, anybody owes me anything. I joined the Marine Corps after 9/11 to serve my country, serve in the Marine Corps, and do the job. It's all about sacrifice, not
Right.
about, what is this going to do for me later? And, some vets don't have that approach. They think that they're kind of entitled to this, after service, gimme, gimme, gimme. I mean, I don't even ask for veterans discount. I just, it's like, not that I'm rich, not that I couldn't use it, but it's just it just makes me uncomfortable. Like, I didn't join the military for a vet's discount. I didn't join the military so I could get a handout later on down the road. Have I been helped along the road? Yeah. And, have I played the veteran card before? Probably. But I just don't think, like, generally, it's just like, it's always such a great thing.
Well, I totally put Marine Corps license plates on my car to get out of speeding tickets, and it's.
I mean, yeah, I absolutely. I mean, that's a given.
Of course, why wouldn't you?
You got like a 50-50 shot at getting a military vet to pull you over.
For sure. Yeah, but I think that what it really comes down to is fundraising. So I'm not going to name anyone specifically or organization specifically, but I feel like they should have like the Sarah McLachlan music bed and, a veteran out in the rain. And I'm not trying to downplay homelessness. Obviously, it's a problem, but I think it's the wrong way to ask people to engage veterans, to hire veterans. And to your point, really what we should be talking about, and this is a universal truth, is that you have to work. No one's going to give you anything just because of X, Y, or Z. So why should it be veterans? I think as a veteran, I think it's the wrong message. And I don't want to feel like someone thinks that I'm some type of charity case either. That's not the right message,
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's something that it's not even, it's sort of the veteran thing, but it's not the military thing.
Right.
When you go into the military, you don't say, if you're a rich kid and you grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and your family is loaded, and they're this dynasty of America, you don't show up on the yellow footprints of Paris Island and go like, "Do you know who I am?" And like,
right.
You should give me this. Like, they're like, "I don't give a crap who you are, and you need to work to prove yourself in the Marine Corps or in the Army or wherever.
Right.
You have to prove yourself and in order to excel and to get to the next rank and get through your career."
Yeah,
it's exactly the same on the outside. You have to prove yourself, to go up and to excel. And it's kind of a sad fact, but most people don't care you're in the military.
Right.
And any kind of job interview I've been in, whoever's on the other end of the table didn't care that I was in the military, nor did they even know how to ask me questions about it. So, it's just something like, they are like, "Oh, you're in the military. That's great. Where'd you go to college? Let's move on.
Right.
What's your major? And, what have you done? So, if you're getting out and you're deciding to, go into whatever career you want, the military part of your resume should be, sort of civilianized. And, instead of a sergeant, I was a supervisor.
Right.
Stuff like that. But you should highlight your education, and I strongly suggest people go out and get on the GI Bill. The post 9/11 GI Bill is amazing, and it's worth doing. And also go out there and get internships while you're in college and get the experience, civilian experience, just for the fact that you're getting experience in a career and you're figuring out, oh, do I like this, and whatever. I did like an internship with a financial services company and figured out that I hated it. So like, that's a career I didn't want to go into, but I had experience in it.
Right.
And then the other thing is like, just working with people who have no military experience really benefits a military vet getting out, and just how to speak normally. After that, you just transition. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
That helped me a lot.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You either run into the person, whether it be an interview, job interview, or perhaps even you're interviewing someone, or we're being reviewed or interviewed by a client. You're right. They either don't ask, don't know how to ask. It's kind of the same thing. Or there's the opposite extreme. There's the guy or girl who only wants to talk about that. And then if they do engage you further with the job or they become your client, everything is all about the military. And the worst examples are when they somehow ask you to do something where you don't think it's reasonable or it's smart to do it, and they're like, "Come on, you did worse things in the Marine Corps, I'm sure. And I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? So I've seen it go both ways, where either people are completely ambivalent, don't talk about it, don't want to know about it, or it's the opposite extreme. It's somehow used against you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think a good example, I guess, the thing that I kind of go back to in my thought process is that, the greatest generation, the post-World War II generation, and maybe this is just sort of this looking back with nostalgia, and maybe this isn't totally exactly how it went, but I feel like, the military members of World War II, they went through it, and by the way, like a lot more people were in the military during World War II. They got out, and then they went to college in the GI Bill, and they kind of they just moved on. They moved into career fields. And they built modern day America. That's
right.
Like what we have now is because of them, and it's because they just worked hard as all hell. A lot of, if you meet any kind of old timers, the stress they were under and all the other the hard work that they did to get where they are, and just talk to a World War II guy and you'll be pretty amazed. And so, I just think that at the end of the day, we kind of have to get over ourselves a little bit.
For sure.
And the other thing, and this is I guess this will probably be a little controversial, but when I think about my military service, I'm very proud to be in the Marine Corps. I was in for 8 years. It was a lot of good, a ton of bad as well. I don't regret it, but it's also not the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's not going to be. And there are plenty of guys, maybe girls as well, that think like the military was the greatest thing I've ever done. There's this meme that's get passed around where this guy, he's like shooting, I think of Ramadi or Fallujah or whatever submarine, and it's like PTSD, the realization that you're never going to be this cool ever again, or something like that. And well, the thinking is kind of the same, where you feel like, oh, I'm never going to be a Marine again. I'm never going to be able to do these cool things again, or like that's the greatest thing in my life. And I don't think that. I feel like being in the Marines was like really cool. There was a lot of fun in it, a lot of bad, but it was a job. It was just a part of like my career history. And I did the Marine Corps for 8 years, and now I'm transitioning and I'm moving into a different career, and I'll do really well at that, and then I'll move on to something else, and I'm going to be something like that. Like nobody ever like talks about the time that they were like a customer service agent. They're like, oh man, it's like back when I was in the customer service, it was so great. Like it's just, but the Marine Corps military is like the end all be all. I think that's a problem, or not necessarily a problem.
No,
but it kind of hurts people when they think about moving on and moving up in the world. They think they're never going to get as good as that, and I think that's a bad way of looking at it.
Well, see, and I agree, and that's something that we're not talking about when we talk about helping veterans make the transition and helping veterans either, like you said, land a job or even start their own businesses, moving on. Because there is some truth to the fact that you'll never have those experiences. I mean, quite frankly, you're never going to be allowed. Well, I'm not going to say never. Hopefully, never again. But you're never going to be allowed to do the things that we did. Then, if you also think about waking up every day, good or bad, those adrenaline rushes, those challenges, that feeling of, and it was either a good feeling or a bad feeling about not knowing what was going to happen. I think there is some chemical dependency there by way of what you're experiencing. So that makes those memories a little bit more concrete, and you sort of chase those. You can chase those, but I think, to your point, the best thing you could possibly do, the thing that you've done very well for yourself, the thing that I've done, is you need to move on, and you need to, like you said, keep it as an experience. It's just one thing that you've done, but know that there are bigger, better, and even more gratifying things ahead of you. Just to live in the past is when you're going to stay in the past, and you'll keep revisiting those problems. And when we're coming off of military conflicts that have been going on now for over a decade, and we've had a mixed bag of results that the jury is sort of still deliberating on for whatever reason, it's hard to sort of put it in a positive context, or some people are having a hard time putting it behind him or putting it in that jar and burying it in the front yard. But I think the best thing that everyone can do is do just that, is just to move on and move on to other things. And then to your point, when great things start happening in your life, when you start applying yourself and you start to get the same satisfaction and the same camaraderie with working with people and connecting with people and sharing the same struggles, because let me tell you something right now, and you know this as well, running your own business is far harder than anything I've ever done in the Marine Corps. Granted, the consequences were different. One was I would get killed and never.
Right.
But the other is I feel like every day where it's like, maybe I was better off. This is terrible. Today is a terrible Tuesday. So I kind of see where you're at, but I agree. Moving on, moving beyond it is definitely the way to go. And I think that needs to be the message to veterans, is moving on, moving beyond it if you possibly can. And if you feel that you can't, obviously seeking some type of assistance. But
I don't think, moving on, with the caveat that it's like, don't forget, I'm not advocating like forget about what you did and,
right.
It doesn't really matter. It did matter, and it shaped my life quite a bit. The way I look at problems and the way that I can deal with and manage, long hours and stress and all these things. Like, that was a direct reflection of my service in the Marine Corps.
Right.
And I'm thankful for those. But, at the end of the day, it's like, it was just something I did. And then now I'm doing other things. And, I constantly feel like I'm going to do better next year, and I'm going to try to do more than, this year. And that's part of the reason, that's the thinking that's involved. That's the thought process of the Marine Corps that I kept with me, to keep doing better and excelling. And, I want to have a better PFT score this next test and stuff like that. Like, you constantly are trying to improve yourself. And then when you get out and you're a veteran, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you kind of feel lost. And I definitely had that for quite a bit. And I managed to get over it.
So basically what we're agreeing on is, remember what your coach told you, but don't show up at Applebee's wearing the varsity jacket 20 years later. Is that what we're saying? And then we'd agree on
please don't wear like an OIF hat. You cannot wear those until you're at least 65, 70 years old. Like, it's not allowed.
Yep. Yeah. Getting your free Viagra injections, which by the time we retire, it'll certainly be Viagra injections. So we both have sons now, which is interesting. And I'm sort of struggling with that. Mine's very young. He's 2.5. But I'm struggling with, what I don't care about people on the street asking me, and I have some people ask me on the street, or I'll watch a documentary like The Unknown Known on Netflix, and it'll start to people ask me if I've watched that documentary, and how do you feel about that as an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran? And the fact of the matter is, we made major mistakes in Iraq, and we've had friends, colleagues, if you will, brothers, sisters who've lost their lives there. It's terrible, and you don't want to downplay that. You almost feel guilty. For lack of a better term, shit-talking Operation Iraqi Freedom, but it was a disaster. It was a joke. It continues to be, the proverbial joke and real the physical disaster that it is. I mean, it's a mess. But I don't know how I'm going to explain this to him. I'm not sure how he'd feel if he came to me and said, Dad, I've thought about going to college, or I thought about going to law school, med school, or I thought about going to coding boot camp, whatever it is, but I want to be a Marine. I want to be like you. I don't know, how that conversation goes when he asks me about it. Even when he's going to be 7, 8, 9 years old, he's going to ask me about things. I'm still going through like how to explain that to him. I don't want to glorify it because there's nothing glorious about it. I don't want to downplay it because I feel like that's disrespectful, and it demeans my history, where I came from, how it helped me become a man, how it helped me like I said, there was definitely an important step in my life, but it was just a step. It was just a phase. Do you struggle with the same thing as a father? Do you think about this stuff?
Well, okay, so I got to tell you the one of the biggest reasons why I went into the military. I ended up in the Marine Corps, but why I went into the military is my father used to have, he didn't have any, he was in the Army. He didn't have any kind of Army memorabilia or anything around the house, but he did have his old Army uniform in this closet, and he still had all his ribbons and his badges and everything on it, patches, all that stuff from the Army. And I used to put it on as a kid, like when he wasn't looking, and he didn't know this, but I'd like put it on and I'd wear it around and I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, like I'm a soldier and I feel like I'm so cool here. That was a big thing for me, to think like my old man was in the army and he wore this uniform and he was a big time hero. And so that was like, I was thinking about the military throughout my childhood, and then 9/11 occurred, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. It was just kind of this perfect timing of me graduating high school. 9/11 occurs, and there's this patriotic fervor, and I decided to go and end up joining the Marine Corps. So that's kind of it's funny because you have all these things behind you. Your military thing. I would think that's kind of that would shape the thinking, the rationale of a kid, to see dad's stuff, war medals or whatever on the wall, or uniforms or whatever. So I wouldn't say to hide it, but I just think that's something that kind of shapes a kid's brain. If my son came to me, my son's 5 years old. He's actually named, my son's name is Jason. He's named after one of my mentors, Jason Ramsire, who was killed in Iraq in 2006. So he has that with him, for his life. He will know who that is. He'll know who Jason Ramsire is, and he'll know the story of him. So there's that. But if he ever came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, I want to join the Marine Corps," ultimately, would I support it? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would be proud to have my son be in the Marine Corps. Do I want him to join the Marine Corps? No. I basically, it's just that I went into the military, during a time, that was really pretty crazy. I don't necessarily have this like family lineage of military service or anything like that. And really, when you're a parent, you don't ever want to have your kids join something that could potentially get them killed. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on that. Basically, you want what's best for your kid, and so what's best for mine is to, be safe in the United States.
Right.
Is that really selfish of me? Sure. I totally understand that, and there's plenty of families out there who would say, "Oh, why not your son?" Again, I'm not against him joining. It's just that if it came down to me choosing, I would say like, no, I really don't want you to go, but that's not my choice. He'll make that choice. And if he decides to make it when he's 18 years old, you can be sure as hell you'll know that I'll be very proud to be the Marine dad and, go see him graduate and probably cry my little heart out when I see him, step on or walk across the parade deck if that is the case. So I know that's like a long way around of answering the question.
No, listen, it's an honest answer. I mean, I think we feel the same way. It's pretty interesting though how we become very selfish as parents. We don't have the same mentality. Clearly, thank God we don't. That we had when we were 18, 19, 20. I was accepted to officer candidate school in between the first plane hitting the first tower, second plane hitting the second tower. And so, like you said, 9/11. At the time, we called our generation's Pearl Harbor. It was a very crazy call to arms type time in American history. I was very proud and still am very proud of what we all did collectively because we did what we were asked to do when no one else would do it. Those who directed us, whatever their agenda was, whatever their plan was, I would simply put the failure on them. It wasn't at our level. And that's sort of how I've come to terms with it myself. I feel absolutely terrible. I think we all have a bit of survivor's guilt with those who didn't come home. But to your point, I think we all owe it to them to continue on to do things just like you're doing, and that's the best way to honor them. But then again, not to go back to it, but looking at it as a parent, my mentality completely flips, and I say to myself, there's no way I would want my son to go through that, experience it, but clearly I'm sure my parents felt the same exact way. I apologize to them whenever I can about what I put them through with that deployment because I know it was hell, and I'm sure all parents feel the same way, but we're not going to control that, and they're boys, so they're going to do what they want to do anyway. We're just the old guys who don't know anything. Yeah. How are you liking Los Angeles? I love Los Angeles. I'm out there quite often. It's quite different from Tampa. The community's great, though. Great entrepreneurial spirit. The water level is kind of a little questionable right now.
I like LA. I've only been here since November, but I really love LA. It's really great. I've only been up here. I was down at Camp Pendleton. I was stationed there for 3 years, and so I usually hung out in Orange County area, and that's where I lived. But I made it up to LA only a couple times, and I thought this place sucks. Like, it's just, I was there for maybe a day or two, and I think I went to Hollywood once, and I'm like, it's all grungy and crappy. And so visiting is a weird experience. When I visited, I thought it was like, I didn't really like it. Living here, it turns out, is actually really cool. And it actually, I've been into 3 major cities in the past 3 years. So I lived in New York for about a year. I moved to San Francisco for about a year, and then I just moved down here. And so I have this perspective on the different cities. I love New York. New York is like the best. It was just exciting, really fun city to be in. Just always something to do, and always like the food is great and everything like that. San Francisco is a very different from New York. The city, it's not the city that never sleeps. They definitely sleep at like 11 p.m. and they don't have a good subway system, and it's just like very different. And I didn't really love San Francisco. And then I came down to LA, and it basically reminds me of New York City, except you have to drive.
Yeah, it's
that's
spread
kind
out.
of, so it's like really spread out, but there's still the same. The restaurants are awesome. The weather is fantastic. They kill New York in that front. And then there's just always stuff to do, and I love comedy clubs, and I'm actually going to the Improv today for
Awesome.
A show. But they're all over the place, and there's big name comedians, and you can go see a show being taped at CBS or wherever. Like, there's just a lot of opportunity out here.
Yep.
That I really like, and there's a pretty good veteran community here as well. So it's been pretty good.
Yeah, the people, which they get a bad rap, but clearly the people of LA they make LA special. You can go there, you can see it from a distance, like you said, maybe go for a weekend. You're not going to experience LA. It's not until I started working there that you realize the creative energy there, the opportunities, the networking. I hate that word, by the way, networking. It's like
I hate networking. Yeah.
And by the way, I'm the worst networker in the world, and so I hate that word. But the networking, what I mean by that is when you collaborate with someone, I do feel as though, especially in LA, someone will say, hey, you know what? I know someone who's working in that same, you guys should totally meet and talk. I feel like everyone in LA, they're always connecting people. We'll agree never to use the word networking ever again on this podcast.
Well, I want to throw out a thing on. I want to throw a thing about networking on that. There's this. I've gone to so many networking functions and stuff, and most of them are always bullshit.
Right.
Basically you have people who walk around the room and they're just trying to gather up as many business cards as they can, and then they'll contact them on LinkedIn later, and they'll add them to their network, and that's this just really, really just not very good connections being made. And I think I read an article or something like that one time, and this is kind of how I approach these situations now, is if I'm at some sort of function, event or whatever, I just focus on making finding one person and talking to them, and not being like, without any kind of reservations, without any kind of thing like, oh, I really want to get X from this person. You find one person and you're like, what's your story? What do you do? Like, where are you from? Oh, do you like that place? What's there to do there? You may not even be talking about work. You just kind of, you make sort of an acquaintance / friend here. And that's going to be a way more meaningful connection that might help you down the line. Maybe not, who knows? But you're actually going to make a no crap connection with another human being versus grabbing like 20 business cards, and they're just, you have made zero connections whatsoever. And those never really pan out. I've never gotten a bunch of business cards and be like,
that's why
it's just
I
like
hate
you
them.
add them on LinkedIn and they're gone.
That's exactly why I hate them, though, because it's like this superficial time where I'm supposed to go in here and meet as many people as possible for business opportunities. So it feels very disingenuous, which is difficult. So I think going in there, like you said, and actually being a human being, connected with one person, is certainly the way to go. But I also think you have a different mindset. Like you're not going in there looking to blast spam, 50 people and sell them neon signs. You're a little bit different. I also think that when you meet people, these develop characters and angles and other storylines in your head that you can later use. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh yeah, no, I always have a notebook on me. I'm always
Very
kind
cool.
of, if I'm out there. I was at the Pat Tillman Foundation event. Like I was on a panel there or something, and some guy said something that I thought was funny. He said the term professional veteran, the idea of the veteran who's like, at McDonald's, like, hey, you know who I am? I'm a veteran. Like, why do I get a discount on these fries? These people actually exist.
They do exist.
So I used professional veteran in an article. Like I wrote that down. I'm like, ooh, that's funny. Like, so I'm constantly thinking of ideas and that all happens by, talking with people and connecting and everything like that.
Do we have Stolen Valor Police? Are there professional veterans on the Stolen Valor Police or no?
Yeah, probably. Actually, there was a Tosh.0 segment just the other day on Stolen Valor, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, you should watch it. It's pretty good.
Nice. I'll definitely check it out. That's something else that's getting out of control. I mean, it's almost like Reno 911 video clips that are being uploaded almost weekly now of people getting run down in camis and, trying to avoid camera lights.
Some of it is just kind of, it's sort of getting out of control. I mean, does it really, like, to me, I mean, I guess I'm sort of outside the norm on a lot of my thinking, which is probably why I have the Duffel Blog, right? Because we don't toe the line. We have our own opinions, we have our own thoughts, and we don't stick with like the stereotypical here's what a veteran thinks. And so Stolen Valor, I really don't care. Like it doesn't affect my life if some idiot decides to put on an army uniform and walk around and get a free discount at Chipotle. Like, does that matter to me in the broad scheme of things? No, not really. If I see one of those guys out there, like maybe I'll go up to him and be like, hey dude, like, you're full of shit right now. Like, but am I going to pull up my cell phone and be like, oh, Stolen Valor? Like, it's just so ridiculous because you have dudes that are like attacking people and they're like Stolen Valor and they, go and choke.
Take off my uniform. That's my favorite line. Take off my uniform.
Like, well, because when you have a civilian, like you have the Stolen Valor guy, then you have this military guy here, and they're having their interaction. But you have like all these civilians around that are looking, and they have no clue what's going on, and they're like, "Why is this guy, the military guy, attacking this guy? This is terrible!" Like, and it gives us a bad name.
Yeah, perception. Right?
I feel like, because they're like, "What's going on?"
Right.
So it's just sort of, it's just kind of, it's a little overblown, I guess. And then also we have another idea, which actually Max at Terminal Lance touched on really well, about the idea of, veterans attacking other veterans. And that's sort of a theme these days of like, if you have one little stupid thing that you screwed up on your uniform, all of a sudden it's like fashionable to throw up a picture of that person and you blast them on Facebook. And it's like, people wonder why we have a problem with, veteran suicide and, people going into depression and stuff like that. Like I could see you're basically, in a nutshell, it's bullying.
Yep.
And the military veterans bullying other veterans, it's not productive to me. And I'm sure I'll be meme-ified right now and somebody will bully me. but I don't really care. So whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like these things really don't affect me. It's just like I just focus on doing my job and doing what I want to do and trying not to they're just it's like the mantra of the Marine Corps or military as a whole: don't sweat the little things. Right. And in my mind, they're little things.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said,
sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Well, and that's why I think you've been successful, because you've been able to move on. You've made the transition in a very bold manner. I'm extremely proud of you. So happy to connect with you. I hope to have you on again. Maybe we can connect on something soon. I'll be out in Los Angeles. I'd love to meet up with you then. But keep up the great work, man. Obviously, I appreciate it. I'm entertained. And I just, I love seeing someone I know succeed. So keep it up, man. Semper Fi.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Mike. I mean, hey, it's great to talk to you again, because it's been forever since I've talked with you. And it's been good, and yeah, when you're definitely out in LA, let me know, and we'll definitely kick back a few beers.
Cool. Only if they offer
And,
a veterans discount, though. I want 20%
yeah, we'll have
off my
to get
beers.
that discount because
I'll demand it.
I don't drink without the discount, but yeah, it's been great, man, and anytime. As far as whoever's listening to this, hey, check out duffelblog.com. That's Duffel blog.com. And, if you want to connect with me or talk to me or tell me I'm an idiot for my views, you can always find me on Twitter at my name, which is Paul Szoldra, and I'm sure you'll spell it correctly in the podcast. And that's about it.
You'll be hearing from probably 30 people in Topeka, Kansas, and maybe 75 in Tampa, about 30 in D.C., maybe 5 in New York City. But other than that, you're good to go.
All right. I hope at least some Westboro Baptist Church members will be talking to me.
For sure.
Those are always fun.
They'll meet you outside your building tomorrow morning. Freak show. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Centurion 360 podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Centurion 360. Until the next episode.